What is going on, everybody? Welcome to a special edition of the Wrestling Junkies podcast. I'm Mr. Cincinnati, and conspicuous by his absence is the podcast dad. He is dealing with the flu right now, so get better. We'll definitely be having him back soon. But I am not alone. I am joined by a 4-year veteran that has wrestled for Action in WWA4, trained by the legendary AR Fox, Zamir Zuriel. Zamir, thank you for joining us. How are you?
I'm great. Sakpase Napule. Just saying hi to my fellow Haitians out there. I'm doing great. How was your day?
It was a Monday, to say the least. This is kind of our this podcast is kind of our decompression from our normal 9 to 5 jobs, and quite frankly, one of our favorite parts is to do these interviews and have conversations with wrestlers. Just because it's not always easy to kind of see behind the veil and see the person behind the character, and we want to strive to do that more on our show. So. Let's just get right on into it. Here at the Wrestling Junkies podcast, we believe that all wrestlers are superheroes, and all superheroes have an origin story. So, Zamir, tell us about your earliest memories of professional wrestling.
Wow. Okay. First of all, one introduction. Love it.
Thank you.
By the way, I love your entire setup. Your setup is way cooler than mine.
I appreciate that. Thank you. Yeah, it's been trial and error, that's for sure, over the last year or so. But I think we finally got something that hits.
It was looking good, man.
Thank you.
To answer your question, for starters, my mom actually got me into wrestling.
Oh wow.
Yeah, she got me into wrestling when I was about 6 years old. I remember my earliest memory was my parents had split at the time. They got a divorce. I was about 5 years old or so, and me and my brother and my twin sister moved to Mississippi. And we moved to Mississippi. We had about 5 months of living there. Just kind of didn't know what we were doing, what the next step was.
Sure.
And then Hurricane Katrina hit.
Wow.
And then we had to move to Virginia Beach with my great grandmother and my grandmother. And I grew up there. It was in a town, it was a place called Virginia Beach, Virginia.
Yeah.
A lot of people would be familiar with like Hampton Roads or Newport News. Newport News ain't the prettiest part.
Yeah.
But that was kind of where I started to grow up. My family never really had money for anything, so I wanted to play sports. I never actually played a sport my entire life, but when I was 6 years old, my mom took me to GameStop one day, and I had just gotten the PlayStation 2, like one of the first ones.
Yeah.
Yeah, I'm a PlayStation boy at heart.
Me too. Yeah.
Yes, sir. Did you see? Side note: did you see that technically Xbox lost and PlayStation kind of like won recently?
No, I did not.
Really? Yeah.
No.
Xbox it's something like Xbox is like letting PlayStation use games or like a plethora of Xbox games.
Oh wow. Okay. Didn't know
But
that.
it was like 2 days ago. Anyways, but there were this big bin of just old video games, and one of them was SmackDown versus Raw. Here Comes the Pain. Sorry, that's SmackDown versus Raw. Sorry, SmackDown. Here Comes the Pain.
Yes.
And that was my very first video game. It wasn't this little like envelope like packet. It was like a couple of dollars, but my mom bought it for me. I got home, I popped it in, and I didn't put that game down for a good 3 months straight.
I like it because I think that game was the first one to have the elimination chamber, and I was in the same boat. Like when we first got it, it was just okay. That's all we're playing is that match, and it's just my favorite. Yeah,
absolutely. That game is iconic, man. The stuff
really
that you could do in that game. But then I started playing the video game. I never really knew what wrestling was. Actually, I didn't even start watching wrestling. I just had the video game.
Oh wow, okay.
I was just kind of like playing the video game as a kid, and the next chapter as to why I actually started becoming a wrestler. When I was in school, I was bullied pretty bad. It was not fun for me.
Yeah.
In the 6th grade, like middle school was like really the worst for me all 3 years. I went to 3 different middle schools, moved 3 different times, and every single year I got bullied, like
Wow,
bad.
that's nice.
The only thing that really took me out of that was wrestling. So around the time that I was like, I'd rather say about like 10, 11 years old, that's when I started to really start watching wrestling. I remember the first storyline I saw getting back into wrestling. It was in 2011, I believe. That was when,
Hmm.
do you remember? It was like an entire opening segment on Raw. I had just clicked it on. It was when Eve Torres and John Cena and Zack Ryder,
Yes.
that
Yeah.
whole storyline. It was
Yeah.
the segment where John Cena just just read her for filth. And like, I was like, what the hell is wrestling right now?
Yeah.
Hooked me immediately.
That's awesome. That's awesome. So speaking of eTorus, I know that she's one of your favorite divas. What was it that drew you to her right away?
Oh, actually, that's a little bit of a separate story. I actually jumped a little bit when what drew me to her was actually she was the first women's wrestler, but she was nah. For where I was watching, she was the first diva that I've ever seen because
Hmm.
it was again I turned on Raw and it was a match between her and Maurice for the Diva Championship. I never watched a women's match at that time
Yeah.
full through on TV. It was like one of my first times ever turning on Raw, and she was that first match. She won her first Diva Championship. Loved her immediately. I was like, who is this
Cool.
beautiful like bombshell who is like crazy athletic and just is she like looking at her? I was like, you're cool. I don't know what it is
Yeah.
about you, but you're really cool. So that really got me.
Wonderful. Wonderful. So let's fast forward a little bit. You chose to sit under the AR Fox learning tree when it came to your wrestling training. When you were choosing a school, what was it? What were you looking for, if anything, in particular, as far as you know, why you decided to go with AR Fox?
Mm. Well, the main thing that I was looking for when it came to a school was who would be able to train me to get me to the places where I would want to be, where I do want to be in the future.
Hmm.
That was like off rip, because I know that there are a lot of schools in the world, quite frankly, that can rip off a lot of kids and can kind of take their money and not really do good things with their time.
Yeah.
And I wanted to avoid that immediately, so I looked it up. And luckily, I already live in Georgia, so that was a plus.
Sure.
I looked up wrestling schools, and the WWA4 was one of the first ones I had ever seen. I was in high school when that happened. I was in sophomore year, and I saw the WWA4. I was like 16 at the time. I was like, okay, so I'll give it 2 more years. From that point, I wasn't really looking to become a wrestler. I was just enjoying wrestling, kind of bouncing the idea in my head
Yeah.
around when I was in school, but I saw that school and something resonated with me from that point, really. And then to actually fast forward and choose his school, it was the fact that he's AR Fox. I had watched my first match of AR Fox because I didn't know what the Indies was. He was my
Yeah.
first Indie match, technically. It was him and Killshot, which was an
Okay.
amazing match.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Um, So tell us about the first time that you met AR Fox. I mean, were you starstruck? What's going through your head as you're interacting with him?
It wasn't conventional. It was very unconventional. Why the first day I ever saw Fox, I pulled up to the WWA4 for the first time ever. It was raining outside. It was cloudy, and we're in units, so it's not like a standalone building. There's a
Yeah.
UPS like guy who comes in and drops thing off, and some people they were blocking his parking space or was blocking his way. And I guess this is like the fourth or fifth time that Fox and old dude had gotten into it. I pull up, Fox and this dude are just having a screaming match back and forth to each other. Not like a bad way. Fox is a very
Yeah.
good guy, but it was like it was like they was ready to fight, and then I was like, oh, I'm terrified. I'm in my car watching all of this. Nobody has any idea I pulled up.
Yeah.
So I finally walk inside, and Fox is like, "Yo, what's up?" Chillest dude. I was like, "Hi," and then immediately I did have that moment of like, "You're Era Fox.
Yeah,
Wow, you are Era Fox. I just watched you a few weeks ago before
yeah.
I decided to come in here." And then I went down this deep dive. Like, why did I not know about Era Fox sooner? So it sold me. That was my first intentional reaction to Fox.
Love that. Love that. So we've had a few AR Fox students on this show. One of which you actually did a road trip to Florida with. Tell me about your trip with Bobby Flacco to Florida.
Oh, wow. What a throw. Okay, so excuse me. So one Bobby, I love you so much. He's one of the people that is very pivotal in my career. That trip specifically, I was told a week before about a show called FIP in Florida, which is one of the big indies when it comes
Yeah,
to wrestling in general. And I was told a week before I had to actually go. The promoter had reached out to me, asked me if I wanted to be like a part of the show. Obviously, I said yes.
yeah.
I called out of work that morning because I was already scheduled. I was already scheduled to work, so I woke up early and don't do this. Try to make sure that there's some time in between, but I did the whole something's wrong. Like I'm not gonna be able to make it. And then I woke up. I woke up at like 4 o'clock in the morning. We had to hit the road at like 6. I drove to the floor. Bobby, we met at the floor and we drove straight down to Florida. When I tell you that road trip was so funny because we would just listen to the podcast and honestly a lot of it was just relaxing. It was just like
Yeah.
a chill, nice time. Bobby was super funny. He's so sweet. He's very like giving. If there's anything I can say about Bobby Flacco, that man is a giving man. And for him to just just have me jump in the car, one on
Yeah.
very short notice, because at the time my car wasn't gonna make it. That trip alone really solidified that for me, and I was like, I just love that entire trip with Bobby. We got there, we did the show. The show was great. I had a great match. It was actually my first singles match for FIP.
Okay. Awesome. Awesome. I mean, we hear the same thing across the board about Bobby, so it's always nice to just add another story to that column there because I mean, he's been very gracious with us as far as when he's been on our show as well. So it's just it's always great to hear that he's just as chill as everybody says that he is. So, and as we've experienced as well. So, um, I also have to. I also came across a video on your X account of you blowing a fireball at another former guest on our show, Rico Gonzalez.
Ah, yeah,
What the hell happened here? And your caption on this video is just one word: deserved. Why did he deserve that fireball?
absolutely he did. He 1,000% did.
Uh,
Boy, because I will tell you one thing outside of the, I'll say it. Rico's one of the toughest competitors I've ever faced. I can
okay.
100% hands down say that. From the way that this man stepped into wrestling, I was there his very first day. His very first
Wow.
day. And originally, I don't know if he's told y'all this or I don't know if he said it, but I'll say it.
Okay.
He didn't walk in as a wrestler already.
Yeah.
Yeah, he walked in just wanted to be a referee. The
Yeah.
fact that this man somehow turned his career into a wrestling career and has been dominating and working out here has always been like I've always admired him for that. But on the flip side of that, that's a tough dude.
Absolutely.
He's
Absolutely.
one of the toughest out here in that ring. So every time that we wrestled, I've always known that it was going to be a time. Not only because it was going to be not easy, but it was definitely going to be a time. It's always fun in the ring with him.
Yeah.
That particular moment, I I had the idea of like, when it comes to my matches, specifically like the more like hardcore ones, I haven't
Hmm.
done many, but I do have a slight niche in those. I
Okay.
didn't know I did, but I can I can actually get like pretty extreme, and I'm proud to say that when we got to that match, I had already faced Rico about three other times, like two other times
Hmm.
before that match, and I wanted something that could literally blow the crowd away,
Love it.
and it was a fireball. I thought about it. I was like, "What makes fire?"
Yeah.
That was the only thing in my head. I was like, "Okay, so should I say what I actually did, or just leave it at what
I
it
mean,
is?"
I think let's pivot to when you pitched this idea for the spot. How did Rico react?
Oh, he loved it immediately. He,
Doesn't
he
surprise me.
loved it
Yeah.
immediately. You want to know something? Okay, now
Yeah.
that, now that I know like drama at the curtains, this boy, I told him what I wanted to do. He immediately knew what to grab. The only part that we had to figure out was like where to put it, because it wasn't some. We knew a moment like that wasn't like a throwaway moment. It was like
Yeah.
we gotta like figure something out. So going into the actual match, super nervous. We get around to the spot, and my hand is like slipping. I'm like, no, no, no.
Yeah.
like, it has to happen right now. And then it finally happens, and boy, I am so happy that match happened. So happy.
It looked great. Yeah, it looked great.
That reaction was crazy. I was like, yes,
Yeah.
yes.
I mean, that's when you know you've got a crowd in the palm of your hand. That's for sure. Um, so this past weekend, Action Wrestling had an event. You were involved in a segment with Rico, actually, and I believe that you were the personal assistant to Ashton Starr. Is that correct?
I
So,
am.
tell me, how did this working relationship come about?
This working relationship came about because actually I had Ashton is a WWA4 alumni, so he was there before I was,
Okay.
and I had met him like a long time ago, and we had just kind of like formed that friendship over time, and we started to just kind of see each other here and there, more shows, start to really collaborate and get to know each other. Recently, he had reached out to me with the idea of me being his assistant. I was extremely excited because I was like, yay, I get to actually like sink my teeth into something new. That's something that I've been wanting to do or wanting to try to do forever.
Yeah.
And Asher presented the opportunity to me, honestly, a month ago.
Cool.
Like a few months ago, really. Because in October is when then November is when we debuted it. October and November is when we had our debut. So we've had this in the back for a second now. The fact that it's finally coming to the light and finally coming into fruition, I am very happy about.
Very cool. Very cool. That's awesome. So as we kind of wind down our interview here, we like to give everybody the opportunity, because we've spent the last 20 minutes talking about Zamir Zuriel. We want you to shine a spotlight on some other names on the indies that we may not be familiar with, that we want to introduce to our listeners. So if you've got any that you would like to pitch, here's the time to provide that indie spotlight.
One off the top of my head, there's a guy named Edward Draven, and he is I'll say this, pretty iconic. He's very, I don't know. You kind of gotta look him up. He's from the WWA part too,
Okay.
but like honestly, like a lot of my next boys, I will say. But Edward Draven's very talented one. Dante Darko is extremely talented one. That's somebody who I believe that once his time comes, because he's very unique with his style. When his time comes, it's going to be undeniable. One wrestler that I would love to not only get in the ring with, but who I believe deserves a lot more like praise would have to be Robert Martyr.
Okay.
He is iconic to me. He's one of the best technical wrestlers that we have out here. Damian Tanger, he's from Bulgaria. and I've wrestled him
Okay.
a few times. He's one of the best wrestlers I've ever been in a ring with. He definitely deserves that spotlight. Definitely deserves a spotlight out there. Oh, and I know a boy in LA. He's one of my bros. His name is Tony Midas.
Okay.
He's freaking insane in that ring. Go watch out for him. He's all the way on the other side of the coast, but he's
Okay. Awesome. No, we definitely can do that. Like I said, we like to give everybody the opportunity to shout out, give flowers, when we give credit where credit is due. So we like to make sure that we take a second to do that. As we bring the interview to a close here, there's a recurring debate that we have on the Wrestling Junkies podcast, and we would like your input on this. So when you hear the name Mr. WrestleMania, do you think Shawn Michaels or The Undertaker?
The Undertaker.
Okay.
I'm
No, that's okay. That's okay. Podcast Dad is going to be very, very upset that he was not here because he believes that The Undertaker is Mr. WrestleMania. I'm a Shawn stan, so even though he is not here, at least I get to laugh at the fact that he is not here to hear you say that it is The Undertaker. So, no, that's fantastic. I mean, an argument can be made on both sides, that's for sure.
Tell him immediately that I said he's the Undertaker. I was there for his retirement. I was at Mania.
Wow. Okay. Yeah. No, I will absolutely make sure to pass that along. Zamir, this has been a fantastic conversation. Thank you so much for joining me tonight. Before we let you go, what events do you have coming up, if any, and where can everybody find you on social media?
Hi. Okay. Well, my next event is March 22nd, Action Wrestling. I'm very excited to be back there. I'm very excited to start my next journey there. That's my next upcoming one. So make sure you hop out to Tyrone, Georgia, and
Okay.
see you there.
Awesome. And then where can everybody find you on social media?
Oh, ZZ WWA4 on Instagram and Zamir Zuriel on Twitter. X.
Okay. Fantastic. Well, Zamir, thank you so much for joining us. We're definitely going to have you back on our live stream sometime soon. Fantastic conversation, and good luck on March 22nd. Thank you.
Thank you.
Well, that'll do it for this special episode of the Wrestling Junkies podcast that get well soon. I am Mr. Cincinnati, and we will talk to you guys soon.